how humans themselves might evolve the fate of our city's tech. That sounds like it's straight out of sci-fi.
Sounds like a lot to cover.
Oh, it is. And we've got a ton of sources to pull from, reports, articles, even some sci-fi that's gotten eerily accurate over the years.
And that's always interesting to see how much of what we imagine actually comes to pass.
Right, so like how accurate are these predictions? Who knows? But that's the fun part, right? Let's jump in.
Let's do this.
Okay, so strap yourselves in, because the first one is a doozy bionic exoskeletons.
Now that's something I can get behind.
Right, and not just for like superhuman strength, although it's definitely part of it.
Yeah.
Start talking about medical applications too, helping people regain mobility after injuries or illnesses.
Yeah, that's something that's already starting to happen. You see those videos of people who are paralyzed walking again with the help of exoskeletons.
It's mind-blowing.
Mhm.
And like think about the implications for like construction workers,
Mhm.
firefighters, anyone who does physically demanding work.
Definitely. It could change the nature of those jobs completely, make them safer, more efficient.
Exactly. But then it gets even more interesting
Right.
because it starts to blur the line between human and machine, right? Like if you can enhance your abilities with technology, at what point do you stop being just human?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's this whole concept of transhumanism, using technology to fundamentally change what it means to be human.
Mhm.
And that raises all sorts of ethical questions.
Oh, totally. Like, could we end up with like a two-tiered society where you have the enhanced and the unenhanced? And like, what would that mean for equality and access to those technologies?
Huge questions and not easy ones to answer. And the thing is, this technology is developing so rapidly, we might be facing those choices sooner than we think.
Yeah, it's a lot to wrap your head around. Okay, so moving on from superhumans to something maybe even more mind-boggling. The predictions say that humans could be living to 150 or even older in 2124.
Wow, that's a long time to be paying a mortgage.
Right. Like, can you imagine the retirement planning on that one?
Yeah.
But it's serious. That kind of lifespan would completely change our society. Everything from healthcare to how families functioned to the whole concept of aging.
It would require a massive overhaul of pretty much everything we know. And one of the big reasons they're predicting such long lifespans is because they think we'll have cured or at least effectively managed diseases like cancer.
Okay, that makes sense. But then what happens to healthcare if everyone's living to 150? Like, wouldn't it just get completely overwhelmed?
Well, it would have to change drastically, wouldn't it?
Uh-huh.
More focus on preventative care and managing the aging process rather than just treating diseases. And who knows, maybe we'll have completely different healthcare technologies by then, nanobots that repair damage at the cellular level or something.
Man, it's both amazing and kind of terrifying to think about. Okay, so from superhumans and super long lifespans, let's zoom out a bit and talk about cities. Get this. They're predicting megacities with over 10 million people, like Tokyo times 10.
Wow, that's a lot of people in one place.
Right. And it makes sense when you think about it. With populations growing and more people moving to urban areas, these megacities are kind of inevitable. But it's got to put a huge strain on resources, right? Like how do you feed, house, and transport that many people sustainably?
Yeah, that's the big challenge. We're already seeing cities struggling with those things, and it's only going to get more difficult as populations grow. The predictions talk about things like vertical farming, growing food in skyscrapers to maximize space.
Yeah, I've heard of that. And like super efficient public transportation systems that get people around without relying on cars.
Exactly. Those kinds of innovations will be essential, not just cool ideas, but necessities for survival in these megacities.
Okay, so from the challenges of megacities to something that sounds straight out of a superhero movie, weather control.
Now, that's an interesting one.
Right. Like imagine being able to stop hurricanes before they make landfall or make it rain in drought-stricken areas. It's almost godlike power.
And that's where the problem comes in, doesn't it? The potential for misuse is huge. Who gets to decide when and how to control the weather? What happens if one country tries to weaponize it against another?
Yeah, it's not hard to imagine that going badly. And even if everyone's intentions are good, there's the risk of unintended consequences, right? Like messing with the weather in one place could have ripple effects all over the planet.
Exactly. It's a powerful technology with the potential for both immense good and immense harm. So how we develop and use it, if we do at all, will be one of the biggest ethical challenges of the century.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, brace yourselves, because this next one is even weirder. Synthetic telepathy.
Telepathy, really?
Yep, they're saying that brain-computer interfaces could advance to the point where we could literally share thoughts with each other.
No, that's a game changer.
Right. Think about it.
Oh.
No more misunderstandings, no more struggling to find the right words to express how you feel. You just transmit the thought directly.
It would revolutionize communication, wouldn't it?
Hmm.
Imagine how much faster and more efficient collaboration could be if we could just share ideas instantly.
Totally. And think about education. Imagine being able to download knowledge directly into your brain.
It's mind-blowing. But then there's the flip side, the potential downsides. What happens to privacy in a world where your thoughts can be accessed? Could someone hack into your brain and steal your ideas or even manipulate your emotions?
Yeah, it's both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
Like it could usher in a new era of understanding and connection, but also open up a whole new world of vulnerabilities.
Definitely. It's a technology that would require careful consideration and ethical guidelines from the very beginning.
Absolutely. Okay, so from mind reading to something a little more down to earth, but still pretty impactful, the predictions talk about changes to language and culture.
Oh, how so?
Well, they say that with globalization and increased interconnectedness, we might see fewer languages spoken globally, kind of like a convergence towards a few dominant languages.
That's interesting. You see that happening already to some extent with English becoming more and more widespread.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they also predict that darker skin tones will become more common globally.
Really? Why is that?
Apparently, it's because of climate change.
Yeah.
With more intense sunlight, people's skin will naturally adapt to protect itself.
Huh. That's fascinating. So it's like a combination of cultural and environmental factors shaping how humans look and communicate in the future.
Exactly. And it makes you think about what that means for cultural diversity, right? Is it a good thing or a bad thing if cultures become more homogenous?
That's a tough question. It's important to preserve cultural heritage and diversity, but at the same time, cultures have always evolved and adapted to changing circumstances. It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Totally. Okay, so we've talked about superhumans, megadeities, mind reading, changing cultures. Now for the topic, everyone's wondering about robots and AI.
Here we go, the robot takeover.
Right. Like, are we all going to be out of jobs or will we be working alongside these super intelligent machines? I got to admit, I've seen enough sci-fi to be a little worried.
I think everyone has those worries, and the reality is it's probably going to be a mix of both. Some jobs will definitely be automated, especially those that are repetitive or dangerous.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, I can definitely see robots taking over things like factory work or maybe even driving trucks.
Exactly.
Huh.
But other jobs will require human creativity, problem-solving skills, those things that AI isn't so good at yet.
So maybe it'll be more of a collaboration. Like AI can handle the routine stuff and humans can focus on the more complex tasks.
That's the optimistic view. And it could be a positive thing. It could free us up to pursue more meaningful work or spend more time on things we enjoy.
I like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
But it does raise the question of like what happens to the people whose jobs are automated? How do we make sure everyone benefits from this technological shift?
That's a crucial question, and it's one that we need to be thinking about now, not waiting until it's too late. We need to invest in education and training that prepares people for the jobs of the future, and we need to find ways to ensure that everyone has access to the opportunities created by AI.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, so last prediction for today. Get this. No more traditional farms?
What? No more farms? How are we going to eat?
That's what I thought. But they're saying that in the future, all our food will be grown in labs or vertical farms using advanced biotechnology.
Wow. So like those vertical farms we talked about earlier, but for everything.
Exactly. They're saying we can genetically modify crops to be more nutritious and resistant to disease and grow them in controlled environments using way less water and land.
Huh. I mean, it sounds incredibly efficient and sustainable, but is it realistic to think we can feed the entire planet that way?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
And there are definitely ethical concerns too, right? Like
Yeah.
who controls the food supply in this scenario? And will people be comfortable eating genetically modified food?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered, but it's definitely a fascinating possibility. Imagine a world where food shortages are a thing of the past.
Yeah, it would be amazing. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, from superhumans to megacities to mind reading to the end of traditional farms. It's clear that the future holds incredible potential, but also some serious challenges.
Absolutely. And the thing to remember is that the future isn't set in stone. It's being shaped by the choices we make today.
Yeah.
How we develop and use technology, how we address climate change, how we treat each other. All of those things will determine what the world looks like in 2124.
So it's not just about predicting the future, it's about creating it. And that's both exciting and a little daunting, right?
Definitely. It's a huge responsibility, but also an incredible opportunity. We have the power to shape the world we want to live in and the world we want to leave for future generations.
Yes.
Well said. So to our listeners, we leave you with this. If you could fast forward 100 years, What's the one thing you'd be most curious to see?
Let us know.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious.
And keep exploring.